Republican strategist Cory Crowley to get his read on that interview and what the president was saying. Cory, good to see you. Lower than the world, lower than Europe, and the journalist tries to correct the president by saying, but this has to do with the number of cases and the number of cases in the population, of course, not just looking at the actual numbers. What do you read about all this? What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was clearly a misunderstanding there. But at the end of the day, the numbers that the Axios reporter was trying to use are the clearer number, right? I mean, how the people react once we know they have it is pretty much uniform across the world. But how many people are getting it as a result of public policies, that can be measured by the population and the death rate or the mortality rate as it relates to that population. I think it's a key, and I think it's a key that you see the president now starting to walk back. You saw prior to the last week and a half, really, he was very anti-mask. He had a very open up to schools, let's go policy. Now you see him starting to walk all that back. In fact, I'm on his campaign email list, and I got one over the weekend that reminded me masks are patriotic. And if I can't keep distance from people, I should wear a mask, which is shocking coming from him.
Yeah, so when we look at the president saying, Cory, the coronavirus is under control, and you look at the numbers in the United States, I mean, they remain awful. I mean, there are now, we're closing in actually on 5 million cases, and the total deaths is just at around 160,000. Is that indicative of a disconnect between what is actually happening and what the president thinks is happening or wants to be happening?
I think the latter, Todd. It's what he wants to be happening. And I think when this whole pandemic started, there were a lot of people that were hopeful. I think maybe most people that this would last weeks and possibly months. But now it seems evident this is going to last into the fall, probably the winter, because we already know what scientists and doctors have said about how this virus is going to react once the weather gets colder. So now people are looking down this grim path of this is going to last a year at minimum. And I think that's soul crushing. But also when you've dealt with these totally polar opposite political responses here in the United States predominantly, where people have just dug into camps and now are so reluctant to admit they're wrong, even when it's absolutely evident that they were, and start correcting their behavior. And until we get governors to double down and be uniform in what they do, I don't think we're going to see much change.
The coronavirus under control, says Trump. I'm curious what you think this is going to do to his reelection campaign, Cory. This stuff, and there have been others very similar as well, where the president says it's just going to disappear, it's just going to go away. Damage being done or not?
Oh, I think there's absolutely damage being done. And that's why you see him walking back his position on masks. That's why today he walked back his position on absentee and mail-in voting, because he knows that or at least somebody around him knows that these numbers are trending in absolutely the wrong direction for him. And the only hope there is to correct this in the next 90 days before the election is to do an about face and hope people forgive you, which he's a little lucky in the sense that Americans do love an underdog. They love comeback politics and they love second chances. So maybe if he just says, hey, I was wrong, and goes another direction, people buy it. I don't know.
3 months until the presidential election. Cory Crowley joining us from Washington, Republican strategist, with his take on Donald Trump saying the coronavirus is under control, quote unquote. Thank you for this, Cory.